Connecting the dots, reliving Northwood's history with Carrie Bladorn.
Hodags, what are they? Are they a monster? A furry lizard? A cryptid like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster? Are they real or are they a hoax? The answer to all those questions is yes. What started as a lumberjack tall tale has morphed into a cultural phenomenon in Wisconsin, especially Rhinelander, the home of the Hodag. As the lumber industry moved across the northern Pine Belt during the 1800s, lumberjacks honed the craft of bunkhouse storytelling. Hodags are one of the creatures spun into yarns along with Paul Bunyan, Babe the Blue Ox, and others. A hodag was said to be the spirit of a cremated lumber oxen and named after a tool called a grub hoe. In the 1890s, a man named Eugene Shepard was working as a timber cruiser, a surveyor, and a map maker based in Rhinelander, a fledgling logging boomtown on the Wisconsin River. Gene had a talent for storytelling and showmanship, and he was to bring hodags out of the lumber camp bunkhouse and into America's imagination. In 1893, Gene claimed to have discovered a real live hodag in the forest near Rhinelander. The creature was 7 feet long and 300 pounds, walked on all fours with stout, muscular legs, armed with sharp claws. It had the head of a frog and the grin of an elephant, dinosaur-like with spikes down its back, covered in hair, oxen-like horns, and a mouthful of ferocious fangs. Gene wrote an article for the New North newspaper describing his subsequent attempt to capture a hodag. Armed with heavy rifles and large-bore squirt guns filled with poisonous water, Gene and a rough-and-tumble party set out to capture the brute. During the battle, the fire-breathing black hodag was blown up by dynamite. Over the next few years, Gene continued crafting his hodag tales, entertaining guests at his resort on Ballard Lake near Star Lake, Wisconsin, keeping one in effigy on the property. In 1895, the Oneida County Fair sought the colorful Gene Shepard out to develop a calling card for the first fair to be held in 1896. It was at this time Gene purported to have captured another live hodag, which he kept in a pit at his home, feeding the beast its favorite meal, white bulldogs, but only on Sundays. In true sideshow fashion, Gene set up shop at the county fair, bringing his captured hodag for all to see. For 10 cents, you could enter a dimly lit tent and view the beast in person. Those that dared enter saw a black-furred creature, spikes down its back, oxen-like horns, and giant teeth in its mouth, complete with vicious snarls and thrashing, and a horrid stench. Thousands of spectators went away from the fair that year believing in hodags. He then took his hodag specimen to other county fairs, even making it to the Wisconsin State Fair. Word of the hodag on display traveled around the country, catching the ears of people like circus man P.T. Barnum and the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., whom began inquiring about the validity of the reports. Gene then had to bring the hodag into the light, explaining it had all been an elaborate hoax perpetrated for fun. His hodag was a carved log stretched with smelly oxhide, adorned with horns and connected to wires, giving it the appearance of movement. Even though the hodag was out of the tent, so to speak, it did little to stop the stories and legends of hodags from continuing to circulate around Rhinelander and beyond. Over time, the city began to embrace Gene Shepard's famous hodag as their own, weaving it into the cultural fabric of the community. In 1918, the Rhinelander High School published its first yearbook titled The Hodag. Soon after, reporters began referring to Rhinelander sports teams as the Hodags, and eventually they would adopt the beast as its official mascot. Graduates and students of Rhinelander High School and residents past and present are often referred to as Hodags. Gene lived out his life at an estate on Prospect Street in Rhinelander, always keeping a hodag on site for visitors. He died in 1923 and is buried in Rhinelander. Even with Gene's passing and the knowledge of his hodag hoax, Rhinelander has continued using hodags for publicity, marketing, and most of all, for fun. A simple Google search will pull up hundreds of artist depictions of hodags, as the creature has captured the minds of people all over the world. Hodags have been featured in the Scooby-Doo cartoon, as well as in the popular J.K. Rowling book Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them in the Harry Potter universe. Locally, hodags appear as the mascot for the long-running Hodag Country Music Festival, which draws 30,000 to 50,000 people to Rhinelander each year. Sculptures, murals, yard ornaments, businesses, an annual Hodag Heritage Festival, and even a whole store dedicated to Hodag souvenirs can be found in Rhinelander. Gene Shepard's famous prank has taken on a life of its own over the past 130 years. Even though it might be hard to track down a flesh and blood Hodag these days, the Hodag legacy is alive and well in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. From the home of the Hodag, I'm Carrie Bladorn, and this has been Connecting the Dots, reliving Northwood's history on Newswatch 12.
Connecting the Dots, reliving Northwood's history with Carrie Bladorn.
Thank you for watching Connecting the Dots on WJFW. If you have any Northwoods history you'd like to see covered on this program, feel free to send me a message on my Facebook page, Carrie Bladorn, Northwoods Historian, or email me at northwoodshistorian@gmail.com.